anything but normal, that's for sure. So is there any additions or deletions, Carla, to the agenda?
No, there's not.
Okay. A motion then to confirm the agenda would be in order. Moved by Councillor Marshall, seconded by Councillor Rose. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Does anybody have a conflict of interest with the agenda as it was circulated? Okay, seeing none. We have 9 items on the consent agenda. Is there anything there that anybody would like some clarification on or more pulled and dealt with separately or anything like that? Okay, seeing nobody putting up their hand, a motion would be in order that we accept the consent agenda. So a mover and seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Murray and seconded by Councillor Marshall. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Okay, good. We don't have a public meeting or a delegation, but we do have a closed session later on in the evening. And so we'll have to kind of watch at that particular time. So the first item up then is the fire chief's report, I believe. Yep. So Bill Hunter, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First report's the activity report for January and February for the fire department. Call volume is pretty much where it's been for the last 3 years, although our hours have dropped considerably. So that means we're going to as many calls, but not as big incidents. So not that much of a financial drain as far as hourly. Yeah, the last 2 months before we really got into COVID. If there's any questions on what went on back in January and February, I'll certainly try and answer them.
Gotta remember I muted myself. Mike, question.
Just a question, Bill, on like, is there a reason for that we're so far behind on the reports, or like I didn't think we were usually, we're now in June, I didn't think we were usually that far behind on the reports.
I'll blame it on COVID. So typically the January, February would have been presented late March, early April at the latest. But with all the activities going on with the current pandemic, it got pushed back. I will tell you that March and April will probably be at your next council meeting, so we'll be pretty much caught right up.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions for Bill? Okay, seeing none then, carry on then, Bill.
Okay, the second report is was generated to answer the resolution of council to investigate refurbishing the 1996 tanker. So putting the report together, it certainly not only addressed the options and costs, how much it will be to put the 96 back into service, but it also kind of put a magnifying glass on the future need for a second tanker for the fire department. So as council can see in the report, there are many options to choose from. Tried to give council lots of information and choices. The intent is to provide council with the information on the truck, but also to give council some information on the potential acquisition of a second tanker. Not saying that we have to make a decision tonight. That's not the intent. Merely to give council the information and hopefully get some direction. Keeping the 96 tanker, which was the initial reason for this report, beyond its 25-year lifespan, I certainly wouldn't recommend that. There are lots of issues when you're keeping old equipment around, and that's why most fire service standards do not recommend keeping trucks longer than 25 years, unless you're willing to put considerable amount of money into it, more than the $8,000 that I've quoted in my report. That repair cost is only the necessary repairs to get the truck on the road for another year, brakes and exhaust and battery and things like that. I'll gladly try and answer any questions that council has in regards to the report.
Okay, questions for Bill? Nicholas?
One of the comments in the report or options in the report were some water on the pickup truck or something like along those lines, because the new tank couldn't be driven to a field or for a tractor incident. Is there any technology option with foam or something like that you would be putting out a tractor fire instead of water that you'd be using? That, yes, the pickup truck would be an option, and you could have enough putting out capacity on the pickup truck driving into the field with some foam or something like that.
Yes, the pickup truck units, they're not just simply a water tank in the back of the truck. There's different ones. Some have compressed air and foam and water. Others are just water and foam. But with the addition of foam, it certainly increases the firefighting capabilities that you would be able to carry around in the back of a pickup truck. It doesn't address the hauling the water needs that tankers are typically designed for. But as far as meeting the needs of being able to go off-road, the backfield for a tractor fire, back to a bush line for a brush fire or a field fire, pickup truck with that type of equipment would certainly be a benefit.
Councillor Tam?
I guess my question and comment is, the motion that was made was never about investigating the future acquisition of another tanker. It was about refurbishing ours. So the 5 options, none of them really speak to that, other than saying that ours can only run till March of next year. So it's a good report, but I don't think there's many options that are suitable to us at this time.
So the reason that the report addressed the second tanker was based on the question on refurbishing the existing 1996 tanker. The way that I interpret it was that if there was a need today to extend the life of the 1996 tanker for another year, is there really a need beyond that to maintain a second tanker? And that's what generated the options for the second tanker. We could very easily extend the 1996 for a year for $8,000 and do nothing beyond that, if that's what council decides to do. But I wanted to bring it to your attention that there is a future need for that second tanker, and the lengthening the life of the 96 for another year would address that need, but only for the 1 year.
Councillor Trenkowski and then Councillor Tam again.
Yeah, I guess further to Councillor Tam's comment, I guess I was part of the motion to investigate or ask the fire chief for the department to investigate the cost. But I guess having read the report and what I've heard so far, it would make sense that we, given the age of the current 96 tanker, would make sense that we start exploring our options to replace it. It's a valid point that 25-year-old equipment it does have a definite lifespan. So I'm leaning towards keeping the current 96 tanker going for another year, but or buying ourselves time to replace it, which it sounds like we're going to have to do sooner or later. So we may as well start that process sooner rather than later.
Okay, Councillor Tam again?
Just one thing further, Bill. When's the safety out on it, on the 96?
It was out in March.
Okay, so currently it's not roadworthy?
The MTO with COVID has extended the safety expiration dates. It can go on the road today, but I would not do that. I would take it and have it safety. We only kept it on the road long enough to get the rescue back in service.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Wright, or Deputy Mayor Wright, rather.
That's not Boulder. So we bought a new one to replace that one. Now, I saw a great example down in Seamerville the other night. 5 stations responded. No, we didn't have to buy another $450,000 tanker. Mutual aid is the way to the future, is it not? We're not going to ever have 10 trucks in Mitchell. We just can't afford the stability of that. Mutual aid, we got Seaforth closed, Moncton closed, Sebringville closed, Milburn closed. St. Mary's came to that one in Sebringville. I don't think right now we can start to say we're going to go out and buy another $450,000 tanker when we're building a $2 million fire hall just to fill it up. But we have mutual aid. We don't even need to keep this truck going. If this 96 is a liability, I would rather give our neighbors $8,000 in mutual aid because we would have 4 tankers instead of one old one that might or might not get to a fire. That's my fear. We fix it up halfway there next week, it's wrecked. It blows up. Right? You're throwing good money after bad. $8,000 when we have mutual aid from everybody around us.
Thanks, Doug. I guess I'm going to make a comment at this time, and I know Dean had another question, but you know, with mutual aid and utilizing mutual aid, all the surrounding municipalities can maintain, I guess, a more up-to-date equipment if we all kind of share and use it, and I think that's maybe one thing to keep in mind. So, Councillor Trinkowski, you had a question. I thought.
Yeah, well, I guess just in response to Deputy Mayor, I wasn't suggesting that we buy a $500,000 piece of equipment right away. I'm just suggesting that we start investigating what's on the marketplace and see if there's something that might, pardon me, it might fit our budget and might fit our needs. If we, like I say, the repair on the 96 will buy us a year, and then we can, if we get some information, we can figure out what we're in the mood for. So I'm suggesting right now.
Okay. Other questions? I have a couple other questions, but if anybody else has any, I'll let you go first. Councillor Tam.
Just another question about the safety, Bill. So like if we get that safety, say in 2 weeks, we should be good. So I know the report says in March it comes through that's 25 years old, but like if it's June of next year, we get a year essentially with the safety, correct?
Yes, from the date of the safety, we would drive it for a full year.
So fire trucks are safetied once a year, Bill? Is that the?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes.
The one question I had was in your report, and it talked about at accidents, I guess, as much as anything, or fires and blocking traffic. Is that actually our job to block traffic?
We block the traffic until the OPPs have enough cruisers on scene to do it. It always depends. Sometimes we'll go to a car accident and there'll be 4 OPP cruisers, and the next time there might only be 1. It just depends on how busy they are.
Okay.
But the intent, when we first pull up on scene, we want to create a safe work zone for the firefighters. If OPP is not on scene, we're going to use our trucks as blockers so that they're protected downstream from the traffic.
Okay, no, I understand that. The other question, I guess, is more for clarification. So you talk about the possibility of putting a tank on a pickup truck. So I assume from that that we're looking at an additional pickup truck that we would put a tank in.
It was rather install a tank in the existing truck or purchase another truck. Once again, remind council that the existing pickup truck is about probably 13 years old, 12 to 13 years old. It doesn't have the same life expectancy as full-size fire trucks. It is a pickup truck. Most municipalities get 10 years out of them. If we start loading up the back end with a water tank and foam and some tools on a truck that age, I'm not sure how much life we would get out of it. But a new truck, you'd start out from fresh with a new truck.
Mhm.
But it still doesn't address the water hauling capabilities.
Well, even with if you were looking at a pickup truck and you know, this is looking, I guess, down the road maybe, but you would probably want to look at a ton truck as opposed to a half-ton truck, likely, eh?
I wouldn't want to speculate on the size of the truck because I really haven't looked into how much weight the water tanks are with the pump and the water and the foam systems. Because obviously we would look at that, figure out the weight for that, plus the crew, and then come up with the size of vehicle that we would need to haul that.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Councillor Murray had a question.
Bill, how do we deal with grass fires or anything in a field or a tractor fire off-road right now?
If it's off-road, we can take the pumper will go depending on the ground conditions, because it is a single axle pumper. Or we also have brooms and rakes and shovels that we've always used for field fires. We can load them into the pickup truck or carry them into the field to extinguish those types of fires.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions for Bill? Okay, I think we need to get a little bit of consensus here with where we're going to go with the old tanker. A couple suggestions have been to spend the money and get it safety and keep it for another year. And there's been a thought that, yeah, we should get rid of it. So I think I want to zoom in on that right now, and let's arrive at some sort of consensus with regards to that truck. Councillor Trinkowski, did you have your hand up?
I did.
Okay.
At some point we talked about if we wanted to disperse of this truck through gov deals, we'd have to, or similar, we'd have to fix it up to increase its attractiveness at a sale anyway. So I think either way we would have to spend some money to make it more saleable at some point. So.
Okay. We're probably looking at the next owner at probably, it won't be a fire department, but chances are it could be a spray operator or a farmer. Am I guessing right?
Yeah, a lot of old tankers will get purchased. Farms buy them for hauling water. Some pressure washer companies have purchased them. Some people will purchase them and take the fire body off them and then use the cabin chassis for another purpose.
Okay. And the only reason that I brought that up and it's just a question, I guess, is there an advantage to putting it on Gov Deals? Certainly there's a consignment auction coming up at the end of the month. And I wondered if that wouldn't be just as good a spot if it's going to end up being a farmer or a spray operator buying it.
We can put it on any, I guess, anyone. I'm hoping the one that would bring the most money. I've used Gov Deals before in the past. That's why I mentioned it in the report. I did do some research on the value that has been brought in for trucks. I don't know whether they stay in service with their water tanks on them or whether the buyers remove them. But we can certainly explore other avenues for disposal of it.
No, I don't know whether we need to do that. I just threw that out. If that's our in market, that we might do as well at the local consignment auction. But you would have, if that's where you were going to go, you'd have to make that decision almost immediately. So otherwise, it gets full and you wouldn't get it in. So general consensus here, I'm going to circle the wagon here again. General consensus is that we should do a safety on it, and whether we keep it for a year or whether we're going to advertise it on Gov Deals, there should be a safety done on it and make it certified. Is that the general consensus here? Councillor Marshall?
My question would be if for the $8,000, given looking at the prices of the $560 to $30,000, if we would get the money we put into it for the safety anyways. So that would just be my concern on going ahead with the safety. So
definitely, if we had a truck that we could advertise as being safetied in June of 2020, as opposed to advertising it as its last safety being March of 2019, I would say that may draw a little bit more money. We would be obviously with Gov Deals quite upfront with the repairs that have been completed. I would think that would be enticing to somebody, even if they were just interested in the cab and chassis. I'm not going to tell you that, I'm not going to guarantee you that we'll get the $8,000 back, because I don't know what the truck would bring as it sits right now.
Other comments or questions? Okay, we still haven't resolved the issue here. What do you want to do with this truck? I'm looking for a motion of some kind here, I think. Councillor Jankowski.
I would authorize proceeding with making the necessary repairs to make the truck roadworthy and saleable on as required.
Okay, so I've got a mover for that. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Rose, thank you. Any further discussion on this matter? Okay, so you've heard the motion. It's to basically spend the money and get it safetied. All those in favor? And put your hands up so I can see them.
And did Dean also?
Go ahead, Nichols. Sorry.
Dean also mentioned then the sale of it after the safety. Just wanted to make sure, because you didn't mention that.
I'll clarify. I'll rephrase it properly. My motion is to authorize spending money to make the truck roadworthy for continued use in the fire department, so that we have the option of selling it later on. I should have been more clear the first time. My apologies.
So if that's your motion, if we're going to sell it later on, we'd have to sell it before March of next year then, wouldn't we? Otherwise, you're going to have to do another safety.
Well, but we're also being told that the truck won't last. Otherwise we would just keep putting money into keeping the truck beyond next year. So the purpose of my motion is just to buy us an extra year of time. That's all I'm looking to do right now.
Okay. Councillor Rose, you're okay with the clarification on that motion? Okay, Councillor Tam has a question?
Yeah, that's just, it's June of next year, correct?
Okay.
A year from when it's safety, that we were able to drive it for.
Yep, so it would be
We can sell it at whatever point during that time.
okay. So everybody's clear on that? So it's been moved and seconded, and it's to spend the money on the truck and basically keep it. And we would keep it here. And at some point during the next year, then we would probably end up selling it. It's been moved and seconded. That's the gist of the motion, right, Dean? Okay. Okay.
Yes.
All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed, if any? 1, 2, 3. Okay, that motion's carried. Thank you. All right. Any other questions for Bill? Okay. I'm glad we only put one more bay on, Bill.
Just to clarify with council, just looking at the options, was there any desire on council for me to investigate further beyond the year for a second tanker?
Councillor Trinkowski?
I would support the idea of doing some shopping now on both a new machine and a used machine that would be of similar size and capacity of the 96 vehicle, just so we can be aware of what the pricing is, and then we can have further discussion at that time and make a decision later on at that point.
Councillor Vink?
I'd also like to see 2 birds killed with 1 stone. If we could investigate, if we're going to replace a pickup truck shortly as well too, could the option of a pickup truck with some foam technology put on that one be included in a summary like that, so we could see, hey, coming up, pickup truck is this much with this much added fire suppression on it, and then do 2 jobs with that truck and when we're replacing it coming up anyway.
Councillor Tam?
I'd like to see a report, Bill, just with all the capital replacement coming while we're looking for dates. Like, I think we're due for a bumper soon too, aren't we?
Yeah, the pumper's about, off the top of my head, about 3 years out. Or 4.
Okay. So the fact that we built a new fire hall doesn't give us 10 years on equipment, eh? Oh, Councillor Matheson.
I just wondered, we're probably going to be coming into all of this in the next couple of months with budget coming out in September. I'm sure that that would be an ideal time to have us to first look at all this information and basically the fire chief's wish list.
Good point, Cheryl. Point taken. Any other questions for Bill at this time? Okay, we'll move on. Recreation and Facilities Manager. Jeff is going to do this. This is with regard to the tennis court. And we're going to just have a brief explanation here, and then we will deal with this a little more later on in the evening.
Okay, so I just will mention that there's correspondence in your package that starts on page 84, and I know you've all done your homework and read through your council packages thoroughly. The correspondence on page 84 gets read in conjunction with the report that's on page 48. And as we've noted in the recommendations for the report, there are references in the correspondence that if you don't interpret as being directly suggesting that legal action could happen if certain actions aren't taken, I think it's there's no doubt that it's inferred, and as a result of that, we've obtained we've set up for some advice from legal counsel in that matter. So I'd ask that the report just be tabled for now and hear from the lawyer.
Turn your mic on, Walter.
Councillor Marshall, did you have a question?
No, it's fine. We'll deal with it later.
Can't hear him. What did I do wrong?
No, I'm fine. We can.
I can't hear you, Walter.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So any further questions with regards to Jeff? We're going to deal with this later on in the evening. So kind of an indication of what's going to happen. Okay. All right. Moving on then. The next item then is clerk's report and community engagement digital platform. So Carla,
Yes,
take the floor.
the report before you is regarding the current agreement with Bang the Table. So that's what we would call Have Your Say West Perth. So we did engage in their services in October of 2018. We have used it for a number of projects. It is a great platform, absolutely. But through reviewing the analytics, we have not had a good uptake or engagement on this service. The agreement is set to expire July 1st. And so my recommendation is that at this time we discontinue the agreement. Just looking for some direction from staff, council.
Questions for Carla on that? Nicholas?
Yes, let's discontinue the agreement with them because I don't think we have found the use that we anticipated finding out of this product.
Right.
I'll second that too.
Okay, Councillor Bell is seconding that. Any further discussion with regards to that? Okay, so I can read the recommendation. I guess we've already moved and seconded, but I'll read the recommendation and then we can vote on it. So basically, the Municipality of West Perth receives the report Community Engagement Digital Platform, and that council authorizes staff to terminate the contract with Bang the Table and continue to seek alternate methods of engagement. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? So that's carried. Thank you. All right, the next item then is a CAO report, and it's with regards to the McKillop pit property options. So Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. The report was circulated with the agenda. I could, do you want me to share I'm looking to the clerk. I know she can't tell I'm looking at her, but Carla, should I share the screen? Or I think if everyone's got a second screen and you've just got the ability to follow along with the slides, we'll perhaps just have you follow along with the slides.
Tell me what you'd like and then we can do that, Jeff.
What do you think? Do you want me to share the screen and do it as a presentation, Mayor McKenzie?
The only thing about if we're sharing it on our computers, I'm not sure if anybody's watching this on YouTube, if they wanted to follow along, they have no clue what we're talking about.
Does the YouTube video use the share screen, Carla?
The YouTube does show the shared screen. Also, following every recording of our council meetings, if you went to our civic web, you're able to view both the recording and alongside the agenda as well.
Yeah, okay. So I will share the screen. And we will run through this with a full screen mode, if I can just get that ready. Okay, and Carla, have I got that ability? Yes. Okay, everyone, and we'll see if it allows me to share screen number 2. Okay. Is everyone seeing that presentation? I'll just be able to make a couple references to it if we do it this way. So that's a thumbs up, I think.
Yep. Yes.
Okay, so I'm not going to go through it, and I'll blow through these fairly quickly. I really want to get to the graphics and the questions, but the background's provided that it was purchased in 1983, and it was $85,000 original price. It's 37.5 acres. It looks like it should be a 50 when you look at that mapping, but it's not. There is a pit license on it. This location just shows you the general location from Walton and back down to Broadhagen to show you that it's kind of in the middle of those areas. And then when we come in here, you can see on this slide that the makeup of the property. I'll point out that the licensed area is in the middle of the property. The area in the front is designated and zoned as extraction, and we'll show that to you on the zoning. But I want you to see in this photo that it's fully treed. And there was a condition in the sale agreement when it was purchased from Logan Township that would be planted up by, or when it was purchased from McKillop Township, that the Township of Logan would plant those trees. So they're of about that age. And this is a campground over here for those that are still orienting yourself. The official plan designations we've got here are the extractive resources designations, which is this dominant color of purple that's through here, and then there's some natural environment. So you can see that the front portion where the screen marker is designated as extractive resources, but of course it's got trees on it, and there's a little seam of aggregate that runs across here on the property to the west, and of course there's working pits to the east of this property. The zoning, you've got the extractive resource zones on it, and the zones are over here on the right side. And of course, the back portion is the NE2, which is the natural environment zone. The operational plan for the pit. So the old plans were drawn up in 1983, and this is just an excerpt from the operational plan. There's an operational plan, a restoration plan, and an existing conditions plan. All of these, we have all of these plans. They're in the file and in place. And this plan, the operations manager has conducted inspections with the Ministry of Natural Resources aggregates inspector as recently as 2016. And of course, they have regular inspections to go back to this plan. The licensed area is shown on this drawing, and you can see that at the time when Logan Township licensed this pit, they licensed this portion of the pit that was set back from the road. And then again, as I noted, they planted this area out here. So there was a small planting here of existing vegetation in 1983, and the rest of this was planted over and has done quite well. And this is the access road coming in. I took a number of photos, and if you had an opportunity to just have a little peek at that, and I'll just say a little bit about them. So this photo number 1 is the entrance to the Hully pit, and you can see it's a fairly active pit. This gravel entrance is in great shape. The entrance, the photo at the bottom here is the entrance to our McKillop pit. We've got that gate closed and locked off, and of course it's not getting very much traffic. This is a shot of the pit, and there's a few shots there. The different angles of these shots are shown. This is a shot looking easterly, kind of almost in a northeasterly direction. And then this one here is looking more straight east, and there's a little bit of open water in here. It's very shallow. It's hard to say whether that was extracted a little bit and the water table just came up, or whether it was always a little bit of open water there. I would say it's been extracted by the looks of the banks around it. And it just may have been a low water table time of year when it was extracted. And of course, the water table recovered, and there's maybe 2 feet of water there. This gives you a sense of the depth of the pit. It's not very high. and I inspected this pile of material that was in the corner of the pit, and very good gravel. Looks like very good gravel. The floor of this pit appears to have a lot of good gravel left in it, and there would be 6 or 8 feet till you got to that water table that was exposed a little further to the north of this pile. So West Perth has not removed aggregate from this site since 1999, or in other words, from the time West Perth was created through amalgamation, this pit has not been used. It's really been due to logistics. It's logistically to do with the proximity of the this gravel operation to our needs for gravel and other pits that were in the inventory of West Perth when it came together. Secondly, we don't really have the large equipment that would be needed to operate a pit like this, the payloaders and the triaxles in this time to carry the amount of gravel to really make it economic. There have been inquiries in the last number of years about options for the pit, and I know it's come up through, I believe, our strategic plan discussions. We've talked about it. And the property immediately to the west recently changed hands. The new owner reached out and contacted me, which got me to, I pulled the file again and thought we should get working on this, and went out and inspected it. And also we had been contacted by the operator that's currently operating in the Hully pit to the east about their interest in extracting the land in the setback and exploring our interest in perhaps entering into some kind of an agreement with them that would see them extract that setback area as a joint agreement to our mutual benefit, and also perhaps under a royalty agreement extract the additional gravel in the licensed area of the West Perth owned pit. So as I mentioned, there appears to be good gravel remaining in the floor of the licensed pit area. There does appear to be good gravel in the setback between the two properties, the two operating properties. So those setbacks have quite a bit of gravel in them, and it's kind of a shame that it sits there and is an unutilized resource. If there was cooperation between the neighbors, that could be taken out. So I've got a few options for the property. We can confirm that the license is current, and we could, in theory, operate it as a licensed pit and operate it ourselves. We could work with a partner to have the existing licensed area mined under a royalty agreement. We could do that same thing, but also license the setback, or mine the setback area, license and mine the setback area. Or finally, we can sell the property on the open market and allow someone else to deal with it. And of course, one of the possibilities is someone else would not do any further mining, abandon the license, and treat it as a rural property and not use up the resource. Having looked at this and based on my experience with gravel, I think I would recommend that West Perth would be best to maximize the value from the property by working with a partner on a royalty agreement to mine the unexcavated portion of the pit and to mine the setback. What I particularly like about this part of the proposal is that it allows the utility of the resource. There is quite a bit of usable resource there that's left, and frankly, if we sell the property, we probably wouldn't get much more for it, whether that was taken out or not. But I think that there's obviously the value of the gravel that's in it, and there's also the utility of the resource that there's only so much gravel around, and it's best to see it used. And I think once we're done that, the excavation of the economically viable material, I would recommend that we finalize the restoration, go through the restoration as contemplated in the restoration plan, and then ultimately proceed to sell the property. So staff are prepared to do the research on the royalty agreement. I have a bit of experience with royalty agreements, and I certainly have a template to work with and some ideas about what the pros and cons of agreements are in the past and what we could address that would be a satisfactory agreement for West Perth. And I'm really seeking direction for council at this point in time about, I didn't want to do all the research. And in fact, I'll point out that if we were going to go down the path of a royalty agreement, we would drop the boreholes and get good data on what kind of gravel it is we're dealing with, because the fundamentals of a good agreement with a partner are always going to be good information. And so we would want to have good information that we would collect in cooperation with the partner on both setbacks and also get a sense of what we have left in our pit. And then that would give us some quantum to build a royalty agreement around. So if council is interested, we can do the research and bring a report back to council with the royalty agreement options. And if council has no interest, this is the time to say, and we can take care of the paperwork and put the property on the market and sell it. Those are the kind of range of options, and I'm just seeking some direction from council on how you'd like to proceed. So I'll unshare the screen. Are there any questions about the slides that anyone would like me to go back to before I unshare the screen?
Jeff,
Yes,
am I on?
I can hear it's Doug, right?
Yep. So if you go to page 9, like our license pit and their license pit is virtually doesn't touch.
That's
Right?
correct.
Their driveway is right along the side of our property. But the land from the end of the driveway all the way north, would we get a royalty out of that property? Oh,
So
go forward
this
one
is-
more. It's easier to visualize, I think.
okay, sure.
there.
So you like this one? So this is the operating pit
Yeah.
where we would have this common area of setback between us that could be extracted. It's on the east property line.
So that's the only, because if we remove our line to the north, they could extract right over to the tree line. They would
Yeah.
have all the benefit there, yes.
Yeah, this area here, and this is in the environmental designation part of the property. So that was a natural woodland that wasn't planted. And you can see, if you take a good look at this map, there's a plantation back a little further.
Yeah.
You can see the kind of fabric of the tree planting that's been done. But this is a natural swamp in here that I'm circling with my with the hand on the screen.
Yeah, it's just scrub.
And you know, ultimately there would also be a good amount of gravel on this side. If you'll recall that map where I showed, there's a pretty good gravel seam through here.
Yep.
But this is not a licensed pit, and there's nothing to say that this landowner to the west of us will ever be interested in aggregate extraction. So this is just to answer your question, Deputy Mayor, this is the main area of the benefit of the setback. And then of course, when you get in here, this whole floor area, there's quite a bit of gravel left in this whole area that's licensed and hasn't.
So we would let them dig down too, not just the fence line.
No, we would do the unexcavated portion of our pit too. In
Okay,
theory,
we
that
always
would be
just-
to the water line, but you could also do below water excavation, but they would only do it if it was worth them bringing a drag line in for their side.
Right. They have a drag line on their side?
They've dragged up here. You can see the water where they've dragged over the years. They're going to drag where they're getting good gravel. It's kind of a good indicator of good gravel. And it's hard to say whether they would find good gravel in through this seam here and across, but it is licensed, and a couple of boreholes would give us some good answers.
Okay, other questions? Nicholas, go ahead.
Jeff, why did you surmise that if we sold it, that we wouldn't get the value of the gravel in the purchase or in the sale of the property?
You know, there's a possibility that you would be able to sell this to someone that would be interested in extracting that aggregate. The nature of the aggregate business right now, I know that the operator next door there likely wouldn't want to buy. They would probably be more interested in a royalty agreement than actually picking up assets. I think they would just leave it go. So I think that's your issue. It requires a buyer to consolidate both properties and then do all the work. And I believe that the complication with that pit to the east that would be our logical partner is that there's an owner and an operator, and perhaps neither of them are interested in extra acquisitions at this time.
Okay, other questions?
I'm gonna try to unshare my screen. Carl, if you can unshare my screen. I don't remember how to.
There we go. Now I can see everybody. I can tell
Thank
if there's any questions. So Councillor Tam.
A couple things, Jeff. I think personally a royal agreement is the way to go. But there's a couple ways you can do it. Like you can agree on what's the quantity in there, or you can do like way in and way out. So
Yep.
I'm sure you'll have all those options. But a good guy to talk to, and you might know, is Tom Prout. He's involved in some royalty agreements with pits, and I'm sure you know. I'm sure you have his number.
Yes, I have Mr. Prout's number. Have some
Um,
experience there.
Question is, do you know what it's licensed for? Like how many tons a year?
No, haven't done that detailed review of the license, Councillor Tam, but I agree with you that probably a way in, way out, or a truck in, truck out count system is the best system for this one. And you can come up with ways to do audits for checks on accountability.
Any other questions? Councillor Trentowski?
I guess my question or comment or thought is, I can recall Mike Kramer, our operations manager, when it comes time for graveling tenders, there's usually only one bidder that replies to graveling tenders. So I guess I would be wanting to know, I would be supporting the idea of doing the borehole investigation to see what kind of quantity is there, just to get an idea if we have some good gravel in that location, if there isn't a way that we couldn't still be putting it on our roads, or if it's more practical to go with a royalty agreement. I just want to see what all the options are, but first it's important to do the borehole investigation to find out what quantity is involved there, and then proceed on discussion from there.
So yes, and I believe that's a great way of putting it, Councillor Tenkowski. I think getting the borehole data is the first thing to bring back to you, and bring back what the framework of an agreement would look like. And I think at that same time, the question can fairly be asked about, can we come up with a way of extracting this ourselves, at least for the floor of the existing pit, and then you could look at the setbacks as well, in the course of time. The tricky thing about this is that when it's not our core business, so we don't have the large payloaders and the large equipment, and that sort of really cuts into the economics of doing the job. And so I don't want to presuppose that that's going to be the outcome, but I can certainly bring back more information on that when we come back with how much aggregate we have.
Okay, any other questions? So I don't really have a motion here, but I think we just look at giving direction to staff, and I get the consensus that we just want to have them do that and then come back with a report. Is that the understanding here? I see everybody's head nodding. So is that good enough for you, Jeff, that
Yes.
we give you the direction you need?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, moving on then. The West Perth tree planting program. And Jeff, you're going to do that one as well, I believe, are you?
Yes. So the report was circulated with the council agenda. I'm just getting to the point in the agenda where I've got it. So we've got if you recall, there was a motion the last time we had a meeting in person, was in the auditorium here, and we think longingly back about those days. And Councillor Tam asked for a report on tree planting. So with the help of Carla and Mike Kramer, I've put together this background information on how the decision was made through the 2019 budget process and what we used to do. And then I've also covered where we're at. So I'm happy to take questions on that report and answer them to the best of my ability.
Okay, questions for Jeff? Councillor Tam.
He's muted.
You're muted, Mike.
Sorry. Yeah, there we go. Okay, it's great to see that they did something this year, Jeff. The only, like, we set out a bunch of criteria, and it looks like we found out after the fact that the work was completed.
Yes, and so I want to be clear that, and over the weekend, Tony Jackson sent me a further email with a photo of the kind of stock that they planted, and we certainly got the destination we wanted. We didn't just, or the outcome that we wanted. We didn't just necessarily get all the steps filled. And I think given that that's occurred, I think council will probably want to come up with some way of deciding how you'd like to hear a report back from Rural Roots. And perhaps at this point in time, the best thing to do would just be to ask Rural Roots to make a quick presentation to council on the planting program, and have a conversation with them about, what worked and what didn't work, and how they'd perhaps like to do it differently. We did lay out a governance framework, and it wasn't followed. And I can be critical of that, but the other side of it is we also got the trees in the ground. And I think they would be happy to show you the quality of the trees. And of course, we don't have the information about the approval for everything, but I think that we can ask them for those details.
Mike?
Just further to that, Jeff, it'd be just nice if we had some way of, once it's happening and we're confident in the process, some way that we can point the public to be able to access this information. Just a link to Rural Roots, or just to see the inventory and what's been done.
Yeah.
I think Jeff has a good point. I think we just ask Tony to come at possibly even our next meeting, but a future meeting earlier than later, and just update us and maybe express our concerns and maybe what his concerns were as well. Doug?
Could they just tell us where they planted them so we can drive by? Like, do we know what road?
Yeah.
Like,
so the report I received from Tony on the weekend showed a picture of one, and he indicated that they planted trees in all 3 rural wards, but they haven't provided all those details yet. He indicated that they would put a report together for us as soon as possible. And I think on the basis of your direction tonight, I can get back to him and say we want a written report, or we would like a quick presentation. Of course, we'll have to do it by Zoom, but we can work with Tony to make sure that he's supported to be able to do it as a Zoom report.
Councillor Jankowski?
Yeah, that would be a great idea, Jeff, to have the Rural Roots group come and I guess report on their first season of operations, and then have that discussion about how we can, what worked, what didn't work, and how we can improve it. As Councillor Tam pointed out there, what can we do to increase the public awareness of the program? I think you'll find the group has the best of intentions at getting the trees in the ground and getting the work done. They're just maybe not up to speed yet on how to manage and report on the situation. But I think if we work with them, we can get those details tidied up.
Councillor Marshall?
Just a couple quick things, just with the this coming out of the operations budget. My understanding at the time was that this was coming out of the economic or environment, wetlands, because there had been budget in there for trees previously that had mostly gone into the urban area, and that this was being directed to there. And my concern going forward on this is just to make sure that there are trees available for the Mitchell ward itself too. And I know we had some couple trees come down out of the ball diamond this year that we'd hope to get replaced. That won't be happening with this. So.
If I had to guess, both Jeff and Walter are gone because the screen is frozen.
Yeah, it looks like they're frozen.
okay, it's not my job, but Dean, you had a question?
No, I was going to say that the Rural Roots program, in response to Councillor Marshall's inquiry about trees in the Mitchell ward, the Rural Roots program was set up for tree planting outside of the Mitchell ward, is my understanding, which could be further clarified when the Rural Roots Group makes their presentation to council.
Walter, your mic's off. You can hear us. Jeff Marshall, you had a question?
Yeah.
My only comment, again, my understanding at when we did the budget was that that the money from the urban that had been used in other years for urban, mostly down in the demonstration forest, I believe, had gone into the had been moved over to the rural roads for this this previous year.
So sorry, we both got rebooted here. So we rebooted fairly quickly. It takes about 45 seconds when that happens, but thanks, Councillor Marshall. I heard that question. The money that was assembled was as listed in the report. So there was $2,500 in the operations budget that was gathered out of the operations budget and then moved over, and a new $1,250 was added through the 2019 budget. And that money that was in the Environment, Forestry and Trails Committee budget remains there for tree planting. I believe it remains there for tree initiatives in Mitchell. So I believe it's still there.
Okay, and I missed Dean's comments. Did everybody else get his comments? Because Jeff and I were off the air there for a bit. So if everybody else, you can go ahead again if you want, Dean.
Councillor Marshall asked about tree planting in the Mitchell ward, and I was just making the reminder that the Rural Roots, their scope of work was outside of the Mitchell ward, in the rural wards only. That was their intended scope of work. But we could get, when they come to present to us, the group can clarify those points again to us.
Okay, I think that's a good point, and I'll leave it with Jeff that he contact them and we have them come as soon as we can. It's also just a reminder that I think there's money that we put in this year's budget as well. So there's a possibility that they could do further work this fall, even in some planting of some more trees. Any other questions on that? Okay. Moving down, then it brings us into correspondence, and the first item is from a resident with regards to a water bill, and I'm not sure who wants to do the lead on this one. Carla, do you want to talk about this, or is this a Jeff one? Okay.
I would think this is an anyone but me thing.
That's the way I was looking at it.
Yeah. This is a letter that would typically go to Environmental Services Committee. But being the timing, the committee doesn't meet until Councillor Matheson, that's like August, I think would be the next meeting for that committee or something. They was recommended, currently everything's been done in terms of what operations and environmental services can do for this this customer, and it would be more of a billing, just a billing issue. It's just somebody that was, it looks like that their water could possibly be leaking in their toilet, but the letter speaks very clearly that staff did go check the meter. Water ran through the pipes is the ultimate comment to this bill. So this is a bill, as I said, complaints such as these would generally go to environmental services. That's all I can really add at this time.
Okay, so the bill hasn't been paid is my take on this whole thing. Any unpaid bills, we're not charging interest at this time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so is it an option to let it go to energy and environment?
Absolutely, environmental services.
Or environmental services,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. This was addressed to council as well, was an additional reason why we put it on. But if you want to wait till August, this individual, by not paying their bill, they're not accruing any more interest or penalties on it. So
Okay,
If you
I'm,
want, you can just direct it to go back to Environmental Services next meeting for review and discussion.
well, it looks to me like we've got two options. We can deal with it here as at a council, or we can refer it to Environmental Services and have them deal with it and then come back to council with a recommendation. It's not going to have any impact on the homeowner because there is no additional charges if we don't deal with it right now. So I'm just looking for some type of direction here from council, what you would like to do with it. Councillor Murray?
I think we should send it to the Environmental Services Committee and let them discuss it and give us a recommendation.
Okay. So you want to make that a motion, Anna Marie?
Sure, go
Okay.
for it.
Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Trinkowski? Any further discussion? All those in favor? It looks like it's gone for Environmental Services. Good, thank you. The next is a letter from the Here in Perth Public Health Promoter with regarding gay pride flag. Who wants to take the lead on this one? Carla? It's we had the correspondence, everybody's seen it.
Yeah, I think in the catch-all tonight. So this letter was distributed to all municipalities and county councils for Huron and Perth from the public health unit. I believe it went out from each public health unit to every municipality. So what they're looking for is to raise the flag and make a proclamation within West Perth in honor of Gay Pride Month. Just one thing to note, we do have, and you'll see in other municipalities in the news, we do have a policy within our employee policy, strangely placed, in terms of lowering or raising a flag, and it's currently limited to bereavement. However, you will recall that at the Visitors Center, we have raised flags in the past there for various community groups. So procedurally and technically, we would not be, council would not be permitted at this time to put it at the municipal office. Working with historical, you traditionally has been placed at the information center. However, we have received quite a few of these recently. So one thing for council to consider as well is to have staff come back with the report and have a policy in place under bylaw from council in terms of raising the flag. But speaking to this letter in particular, if council should choose, we could raise this flag at the visitor center.
Okay, number one is we don't have an additional flagpole, I think, at the municipal office to actually put it there. So
Yeah.
we do put flags up for heart and stroke and cancer, and I'm not sure, I think maybe Alzheimer's as well. So we have done it in the past, and there is a flagpole there that would allow us to do it. The one thing that we don't do, though, is we don't do declarations or proclamations. So that was also asked, and we just don't do that. So I guess I'm looking for direction here, what your wishes are. I guess I just remind you that we have put flags up in the past. Anna Marie?
I like the idea of putting the flag up. I understand that we don't do the proclamations, but I think since we're able to, I would like to put the flag up and then encourage staff to come forward at some time with a policy so that this can be dealt with generally as opposed to on an individual basis.
Okay, so we do this by a motion at this particular time, Carla?
I would like a motion.
Okay, so Anna Marie just moved that, I think. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Take my pick. Deputy Mayor Wright. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? I think that's unanimous. Good, that's carried. Thank you. We have a letter here from the tennis club, and it's in correspondence. I don't know if there's anything further to add to that at this time. We'll probably have some discussion about that when we go into closed session. Is there anything that anybody has a question of at this particular time? Okay, moving on then, council reports. The first one is the BIA minutes of the annual general meeting, March the 11th, as adopted. And Sherry, I'll let you talk about that.
They're pretty straightforward. We had a good meeting. If anyone has any questions about the annual meeting, it's pretty straightforward.
Yep. Any questions for Sherry? Okay. The next is Maitland Valley Conservation minutes, January the 22nd. Cheryl?
No, nothing more than what's in the reports, if anybody has any questions.
Any questions for Cheryl on that? Okay, Upper Thames, Anna Marie.
Sorry. Yes, we, at the last meeting, just last week, we received the report from staff regarding the blacksmith shop in Motherwell. Before, no, maybe it was in January, we had a presentation by the group looking to have the roof repaired on that blacksmith shop, the group in Motherwell. And so staff came back with the information that they got, and it includes the engineer's report and talks about the zoning and the regulatory limitations, the natural heritage features, and so on. At this point, the board has not made a decision. We just received the report.
Okay.
Any questions?
There was a note in there somewhere where I believe it was an individual had come forward and offered to help out financially.
We haven't heard anything more about that yet. That was, I think, they heard about that shortly before our meeting, and it wasn't anything specific that could be told to us yet. So we don't know anything yet.
Okay, good. Questions for Anna Marie? All right, that is all I have for reports. So I guess at this time I take a motion that we accept reports from staff and counselors as presented, and further that all committee minutes and correspondence not specifically dealt with by resolution be received and filed. Have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Vink, Councillor Rose. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor? Opposed? If any, that's carried. Thank you. We have a bylaw here, bylaw 44 being a bylaw to authorize the assignment of a subdivision agreement between the corporation and the municipality of West Perth and Blaze Properties and Mitchell Woods Inc. in the municipality of West Perth. Now, do you want to talk about this, Jeff, any further? It's just from the change in ownership. Okay.
So the brief update I'll give you on this is that we had for many years dealt with Mike Vole of Blaze Properties, and Mr. Vole has been very good for us to deal with in the municipality of West Perth, and I can't say enough good things about him. I believe that he's divesting himself of his assets and winding down the company a bit, and so the Blaze subdivision that he has approved for 23 lots, 46 units, they're semis, the extension of Clayton Street area here in Mitchell. They have sold that subdivision to the company is going to be called, and now I've lost the name of the Mitchell Woods. Yes, Mitchell Woods. And the deal closed today, or else on Friday. We received notice that the deal closed today, and this bylaw simply is a technicality to allow the assignment of the subdivision agreement that Blaze signed to be assigned over to the new developer, which is going to be called Mitchell Woods. The company is a company out of Guelph, and a very reputable home builder that we should be very pleased with. So we'll see an update to that subdivision agreement coming in the next few months, because there has to be a schedule of the costs of construction added to it, and it will need to be re-registered, and council will see that update as quickly as they can get that into our engineer, and as quickly as our engineer can get it reviewed.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Any questions with regards to that? Okay, I have a motion here then that we can deal with, and it is that West Perth gives first, second, and third and final reading to bylaw 44 this first day of June, and that the mayor and clerk are hereby directed to sign and affix the corporate seal. So I'm looking for a mover and seconder for 3 readings. Councillor Harold, Councillor Rose. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you. Coming events, upcoming things that are happening. Next council meeting is the 15th. And then after that would be July the 6th and July the 27th. July 1st, of course, is the holiday weekend, and I'm not sure exactly what I guess July 1st is the holiday. We'll go from there. Any notices of motion? Okay. Any other business? I do have one item that I'm going to bounce out here at this time, but does anybody else have anything? Okay. What I'm wondering, as things are starting to open up, and I've certainly noticed a bit more traffic on the roads, and I just throw this out for your thought, I guess, but at what point in time should we be looking at opening our washrooms? And this would probably be a Darcy thing, I guess, as much as anything. I'm thinking of the ones by the information center. I know we have washrooms in the park as well, but it would involve probably Darcy staff to look after that. A little bit of background: it came up on the meeting or the conference calls that we have on Wednesdays with the health unit, and that question was raised from the municipality of Bluewater about opening up washrooms, and what Dr. Klassen said at that time, that they should be basically disinfected twice a day to make sure that they are properly disinfected. So Darcy, I don't know if you want to make a comment, and I can look at council if they have any comments as well.
Yeah, we actually talked about this at SLT last week, and I have began to write policies and procedures on how we need to disinfect, when we need to disinfect, how we're going to make it single use. All of them will pretty much have to be single use. And also I was on the phone today, and I'm just working out with Centerline Sanitation as far as porta pots. I don't know where council stands. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to make the porta pots work, but I think we can definitely open the washrooms. I just want to caution that we make sure we have the policies and procedures and ensure we have the staffing and the supplies before we go to opening them. That's all.
Okay. Any comments from council?
Well, wouldn't it be nice to see the ones down at the park there open? I get a lot of, riffraff come in my store and wonder when. One today. Is it our obligation to supply public washrooms? Obviously, that would be the one. It's got washroom written right on it. But I mean, we don't, as a municipality, do we have any obligation to risk the liability of anything happening?
I'll take that one, Deputy Mayor. I think that it's a question of service rather than a question of obligation. And I think that we're in the business of providing service. You'll all know that the traditional drop-in places where folks can stop in our community and use a washroom are not available. And I think that, you know, we're hearing from the province and we're hearing from the health unit that as we come more and more back online and we try to get things back to normal and more people will move, the service of public washrooms in the municipalities that people pass through is going to be important and I think valued by the people that pass through our community. So you raise a good point about liability and managing risk, and we've got good guidance on that. Darcy and Carla have done a lot of work on researching what signage we would put up, and we are going to get to the point, I think, where we have an obligation to our community to put that service in place.
An additional question, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I'd far rather it be in the ones we're talking where there's running water, not porta potties. I think if we have the ones where there's running water and soap dispensers, we're doing everything we can. Maybe even a hand sanitizer station outside. I don't know how hard those are to come by, Darcy. Probably impossible. But I think that would show that if you can go in and wash your hands on the way out. That's just good public hygiene to me. But that's what I would, instead of porta potties where it scares me.
Yeah, sanitizer is becoming more possible to get. So we're working on getting the supply of that we're going to need. And yeah, my conversation, I didn't really feel that we probably would bring the porta pots back in service this year, but I wanted to check with SLT and stuff. So it's good to know that if council's on that page as well.
I guess, you take, people have been canned up for so long that, I noticed yesterday we went for a drive on Sunday and basically we went up to Goderich, the lake, and back home again. And, when nature calls, like, what do you do? Like there's just no places anymore that you can go to. So, I think it's probably something that we should maybe consider as we're coming out of as things are starting to open up. So if nobody's opposed to that, Murray, you got a question or a comment?
Yes, I'd like to make the comment that sooner than later, we should open them up, because working at the dealership, a lot of people come in because there's really nowhere else to go.
No.
So they're coming in using ours. So I just think as was said earlier, that we're here to help, and as a public service, I think we should open them up. And again, if you have hot running water and soap, the people have to take a bit of onus on good hygiene themselves as well.
Okay, point well taken. So Darcy will, sorry, Councillor Marshall.
Just curious if there has been anything from public health on recommendations on the requirements for it, or any direction at all from them.
Yes, Dr. Klassen's advice was clean them twice daily. I suspect that we'll have to take a look at hours of operation, and we may try to even do 3 times daily, but we need to work out a schedule about how we can resource that. And I think it's just one of these things that one of the changes we need to adapt to.
Any other questions? Okay, I've got, it's about 24 minutes after 8. So at this stage of the game, I'm going to ask for a motion that we go into closed session. So I need a mover and seconder. So moved by Councillor Rose. Do we have a seconder there, Councillor? Okay, we're out of closed session. Direction coming out of closed session, and I have a motion here. And it reads that the Council for the Municipality of West Perth directs staff to request a meeting with the executive of the Mitchell Tennis Club to determine the willingness of the tennis club to work with the municipality to complete the relocation of the tennis courts to Veterans Park in Mitchell, and that the requested meeting be scheduled as soon as possible and include the mayor, deputy mayor, CAO, recreation and facilities manager, and the municipality solicitor, and that the requested meeting include a discussion of the terms that would be required by the municipality for the municipality funded relocation of the tennis courts to be completed. The first part is that West Perth directs staff to request a meeting. So if you wish to change that, I'm looking at Nicholas or rest of council. If you, that the motion is that direct staff, if you wish the mayor to be the liaison there, that can then happen too. So whatever your wishes are. Nicholas?
I'll move it. Directing staff is fine.
So staff is fine? Okay, excellent. So staff will do the contact then. Do I have a mover and seconder for that motion? Councillor Marshall, Councillor Bell. Any further discussion or clarification on what we're doing here? Okay. All those in favor of that motion? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. I did. I read all three. All right. I don't have anything further other than the confirmatory bylaw and then a motion to adjourn. So the confirmatory bylaw is bylaw number 45, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the corporation of the municipality of West Perth. We read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Rose, Councillor Tam, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. And finally, a motion that the municipality of West Perth adjourn the council meeting at 9:09 p.m. And that's moved by Councillor Trinkowski and seconded by Councillor Rose. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. So we're adjourned.